She kicked him out for his politics. He responded by paying for meals for people who couldn't afford them. Now, her diner is flooded with supporters, haters, and a viral spotlight. What happens when enemies become unlikely allies? The answer starts with a $100 bill and a secret from his past. The sun was setting over the sleepy town of Cedar Falls, painting the sky orange and pink. At Maggie's corner cafe, the smell of fresh coffee and sizzling bacon hung in the air. The bell above the door chimed as J.D. Vance stepped inside, his stomach growling after a long day of meetings. He hadn't eaten since breakfast. Maggie, the cafe owner, wiped the counter with a rag. Her sharp eyes narrowed when she recognized him. The other customers, truckers, farmers, and a couple of college students, stared. The TV above the counter buzzed with political debates, and J.D.'s face had been on it all week. J.D. slid into a booth by the window. A waitress named Lucy hurried over, her smile warm. "Coffee?" she asked. Before J.D. could answer, Maggie marched over, her hands shaking. "Get out," she said, her voice cracked. "I won't serve someone like you." J.D. looked up, confused. The cafe went silent. Lucy froze. "My brother lost his job because of people like you," Maggie snapped. "You think you know what's best for us? Not here." The room held its breath. J.D. could have argued. He could have snapped a photo and blasted the cafe online. Instead, he nodded slowly, pulled out his wallet, and left $100 on the table. "For the next few meals," he said quietly. Then he walked out, the bell jingling behind him. Lucy picked up the cash, her throat tight. Maggie stared at the door, her anger mixed with guilt. She hadn't expected kindness. That night, Maggie sat alone in the empty cafe, counting the day's earnings. A crumpled $100 bill sat in the register. On the counter, her phone buzzed. A notification popped up. J.D. Vance had tagged Maggie's corner cafe in a social media post. "Got turned away here tonight. Owner stands by her beliefs. Gotta respect that. But if you're in Cedar Falls, try the pancakes. Smelled amazing." Maggie's hands trembled. Why would he help her after she'd humiliated him? By morning, cars lined the street outside the cafe. Strangers packed the booths, ordering stacks of pancakes and endless coffee. Reporters lingered outside, snapping photos of the controversial diner. Maggie and Lucy scrambled to keep up, flipping bacon and pouring syrup until their aprons were stained. But every time the door opened, Maggie flinched. Was this a trick? Would the crowd vanish once J.D.'s fans got bored? Across town, J.D. sat in his car, watching the chaos from a distance. He scrolled through photos of his grandma, a waitress who'd once saved a struggling diner by giving free meals to hungry kids. "People won't always like you," she'd told him. "But hate's easy. Kindness, that sticks." Back at the cafe, Lucy found a note tucked under the register. "For the next family who can't pay. J.D." Maggie unfolded it, her eyes wet. Outside, the crowd kept growing. The week blurred into a whirlwind of frying pans and coffee stains. Maggie's corner cafe stayed packed. Strangers drove hours just to snap selfies by the famous pancake sign. Reporters camped outside, shouting questions Maggie never answered. But the $100 bill stayed tucked under the register, untouched. One rainy afternoon, the crowd thinned. Maggie slumped at a booth, her apron dusty with flour. Lucy slid into the seat across, holding 2 mugs of hot chocolate. "Why'd he do it?" Lucy asked. "After what you said?" Maggie stirred her drink, watching marshmallows melt. "Maybe he's not the monster I thought," she muttered. That night, Maggie flipped through old photos. Her brother laughing at the counter years ago before the factory closed. Guilt gnawed at her. She'd blamed politicians like J.D. for her pain, but the cafe's revival? That was his doing. At sunrise, a black SUV pulled up. J.D. stepped out, alone. Maggie's heart raced as he walked in, rain dripping from his jacket. "Just coffee," he said, nodding at Lucy. Maggie hovered by the counter, fists clenched. "Why?" she blurted. "Why help me?" J.D. sipped his coffee, quiet for a moment. "My grandma ran a diner," he said. "She fed folks even when they cursed her. Taught me that kindness isn't about who deserves it, it's about who needs it." Maggie's eyes dropped to the $100 bill. She slid it toward him. "Keep it," he said, "for the next kid who needs a meal." The bell jingled as he left. Maggie stared at the empty booth, then grabbed chalk and scribbled on the specials board. Free breakfast for anyone struggling. No questions. Word spread faster than syrup. Families came, single moms, veterans. The cafe stayed full, but now it hummed with laughter, not politics. A month later, a photo blew up online. J.D. sitting at the counter, laughing with Maggie over pie. The caption read, "Sometimes the best way to fix a broken world? Start with breakfast." Maggie kept the $100 under the register, and every morning she added a new name to the free meal list. Maggie's Corner Cafe became more than a diner. It turned into a reminder that bridges get built one meal, one act, one choice at a time. J.D.'s $100 bill stayed under that register for years, feeding families who needed hope as much as food. Stories like this don't fix the world, but they prove change starts small. Hit subscribe if you believe kindness is louder than anger. Drop a comment below. Where would you start?